Happy Wednesday. How we doing, guys? Yeah, everyone getting back to normal. No snow days, no holidays, a full 5-day week. Who's excited about that? Yeah. Man, you guys took that better than I thought. Does anyone else love a good deadline? Anyone love deadlines? Yeah? I'm a deadline person because I'm an awful procrastinator. It is probably one of my greatest weaknesses in life. Is that I will put something off until the last possible moment, especially when it comes to school, or definitely never sermons, mostly school, right? Or any sort of project like that. I love to wait until the very last minute, and I need the deadline because the deadline forces me to do it. It forces me to get it done. And there's something in my brain that when that adrenaline hits the morning of papers due, is the brain just like elevates. And I'm on another planet and just knock out that paper. And I was thinking, what is the worst case of my procrastination? Like, what would be my best story to tell you to not be like Ethan? And the problem was there was too many to choose from. And so the most recent one that was extra bad was Labor Day, this past Labor Day. I was taking a class and I had a paper due at 11:59 on Labor Day, which is the Monday that we all get off. And so you would think that, Ethan, you should probably start working on that on, like Friday or Saturday before the holiday weekend. No. I'd read half of the book I was supposed to write a paper on when I woke up that morning. And so I had to go to the coffee shop. I read the final 150 pages of my book, and then I had to write a chapter-by-chapter summary of the entire book. So you had to read the book. It ended up being 10 pages single space, and I worked for 13 hours that day and did absolutely nothing on my Labor Day. And the paper got done. Did not do very well on it, but it was turned in. Don't procrastinate like Ethan. I tell you the story because we're going to talk about a deadline tonight. We're going to be in Joshua chapter 24. And Joshua gives the people a deadline. They have a decision to make. And I, like I said, love a good deadline because it forces a decision. It forces action. That you can't keep putting things off. Some of you have friends, or maybe you are the friend that doesn't commit to things. That waits until the last minute to say, I'm going to be there, I'm going to do this. We all have one of them. Maybe you are that friend that you just cannot get to say yes to showing up to the thing. And it's horrible to make plans. And the people that are planners in the room, maybe your best friend is an uncommittal person, and it drives you crazy. Let's dive into the text. The deadline that Joshua has for Israel. We are in the final chapter of the book of Joshua. If you've been around Jersey for the last couple of months, you've known we've been talking a lot about Joshua. We read a ton in the first couple of chapters of Joshua. We talked about Joshua in the different books of the Bible before Joshua. It's been all about Joshua. And we've reached the end of Joshua. Joshua knows that his time in this world is coming to an end, that he is about to pass away. If you remember, something similar happened with Moses, where he knew that he was about to die, and he addresses the people. And this is what Joshua does. In chapter 22 to chapter 23, we see a large jump in time. 22 kind of finishes the taking of the land, and then it says many years later. This could be 10, 20, 30, maybe 40 years later, and Joshua is at the end of his life. And he calls the people to this place called Shechem. Start here in verse 1. Joshua assembled all the tribes of Israel at Shechem and summoned Israel's elders, leaders, judges, officers, and they presented themselves before God. He brings them all together. Shechem was a historical place in the Bible. It was not where the tabernacle was, but this is where Abraham had spoken to God. Jacob had spoken to God here. Many think that this is where they buried the bones of Joseph. And they come through Shechem as they entered the land. And so there's a lot of significance to this physical place. But there's even more significance to what Joshua wants to do here. And he said to the people, here in verse 2, "This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says." He's now taking on the role of a prophet. He's about to relay to them the words that God has given to him. This is no longer Joshua speaking to the people. God is now speaking to Israel through Joshua. He says, long ago your ancestors, including Terah, the father of Abraham and Nahor, lived beyond the Euphrates River and worshipped other gods. But I took your father Abraham. And so what he does here is the next few verses is that Joshua lays out before Israel their entire history. Their entire history, beginning with Abraham to Jacob and Esau, going into Egypt, how God led the people out of Egypt, how he led them into the promised land. We'll pick up here in verse 11. It says, you then crossed the Jordan and came to Jericho. Jericho's citizens, as well as the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Canaanites, the Hethites, the Girgashites, Hivites, Jebusites, all the ites were there. They fought against you, but I handed them over to you. Listen to all the I language. This is God saying to his people, I handed them over to you. I sent hornets ahead of you and drove them out, the two Amorite kings before you. It was not by your sword or bow. He's reminding them once again, it was never by your power, Israel. I gave you a land that you did not labor for, and cities that you did not build. Though you live in them, you are eating from vineyards and olive groves that you did not plant. There's a clear hierarchy here. God's saying, this is what I have done for you. Don't mistake it as your work. Don't mistake it as your military prowess. It was not you that split the sea to free you from Egypt. Remember, this is your God. This is what Joshua is saying to the people. They're all gathered together in his final days. And in verse 14, he says, therefore. You want to talk about a loaded therefore. God has just built the entire history of Israel upon this therefore. This is what he really has for the people. This is what he wants to say to them. Therefore, fear the Lord and worship him in sincerity and truth. Get rid of the gods your fathers worshipped beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt, and worship the Lord. What does he want them to do? He wants them to remember. He wants them to do two things, fear and worship. He wants them to fear God and worship him. We see this phrase, fear God, all throughout the Bible. And remember, it's not this like you hide underneath your bed afraid of God. This is a reverence and awe of just, it's almost when you see fear God, it can't be encapsulated by words. It's this emotion that rises up when you think about the power and the holiness and the grandness of God. And so if you just imagine the most beautiful sunset or mountain range that you've ever seen that just takes your breath away, thinking about the awe of God. This fear that we have of him leads us to worship him. This word worship is really interesting. Some of your translations might say serve. Serve him or worship him. It's this idea of a wholehearted devotion to God. That our fear, our reverence of God leads to a wholehearted worship and service of him. And there's two adjectives he describes it with. In sincerity and truth. Sincerity and truth. God doesn't want a fake adoration. He doesn't want fake fear. He doesn't want you to pretend to worship or to serve him. We live in a world of deception, right? That everything you see on the internet may or may not be real. The AI videos are everywhere. You never know. You might see someone lifting weights, and you think there's no way because they have fake weights. That they're just trying to get clicks or views. You see a lot of people think, like people thought Dude Perfect were faking their trick shots. They were so crazy. Now, I don't think they did, but they got a lot of accusations. Maybe you see people wearing fake sports jerseys around, and something just looks a little bit off. You can tell that it's not the real thing. But we also really recognize when people are fake in relationships. We can tell when someone's not being sincere with us. We've all had someone say something to us that we know is not true. When they give those fake compliments and you just know that something's not right there. You know that they're not being sincere or genuine. You've heard what they've already said behind your back. Or you can just see it on their face that they don't really mean it. This is not what God wants from His people. He does not want us just with our words to say that we worship God, to say that we fear God. He wants our devotion. And then lastly, what does this lead the people to do? He says, get rid of the gods your fathers worshipped before the Euphrates River and in Egypt. As I was reading about this passage, these words, get rid of, really jumped out. Because it's not don't go back to them, not you've already gotten rid of them, don't go back to them. It sounds like there were already other gods amongst them. That they're already living in the land of promise, and there are still other gods within their midst. This is an immediate command and a future command. Get rid of them now and into the future. And then verse 15. Every good sermon has a call to action, a call to change. This is the deadline that Joshua is giving to the people. He says, but if it doesn't please you to worship the Lord. That's a wild sentence. But if it doesn't please you to worship the Lord, choose for yourselves today. Here's the deadline. Israel, today, you have to make the decision. Which way are you going to go? Which will you worship? The gods your fathers worshipped beyond the Euphrates River, or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you are living? Are you going to inherit the gods of the people whose land God has given you? And Joshua concludes, as for me and my family, we will worship the Lord. Joshua knows what he's going to do. He knows where his heart is set. But he poses this question to Israel. Today, a decision is to be made. We live in a world of FOBO. You ever heard of this term? We all know FOMO, fear of missing out, right? FOBO is the fear of a better option. When someone asks you what you're doing this weekend, and you don't want to say nothing because you don't know what's going to come along the line, and you don't like the option you're given, and so you're uncommittal about it, hoping that a better option comes further down the line. Or maybe that better option is just staying home and playing video games. I don't know. But we live in a world of the fear of better option. And Joshua knows the people he's leading. He knows that they will wander if given the choice. And so he gives them a direct decision. Israel, who today will you choose to worship? He wants them to make the decision right now. So, guys, this is the question that I pose to you tonight. Who will you worship? Because we have a similar decision to make. We still live in a world where people serve other gods. We still live in a world of idolatry, which can be confusing. Because idolatry does not look the same as it used to in most cases. I'm not here to say that you have a little wooden figurine sitting on your nightstand or on your dresser. Maybe you've got a rock sitting on your desk that you pray to every morning. That's not really what idolatry looks like right now. But you've probably got a phone sitting on your bedstand. You've got clothes in your room. You've got friendships. Maybe you've got sports or your school. Maybe it's a sports team or any version of entertainment like a show or a video game. Idolatry. Idolatry is anything that we put above God. Because in our priority list, God is first. He's the only thing that we worship. And so here's a question that you can ask yourselves. When you are afraid, do you run to your phone or your friends or your video games or hide in athletics Or do you turn to God for comfort? Here's another question. Where do you place your identity? Is your identity in what other people think about you? How many friends you have? The things that you wear? How good you are at your sport? Whether you win or you lose? Where do you turn when you're afraid, when you need comfort? And where do you place your identity? Because all of these things, when you do that, you're putting it above God. Now hear me say, I'm not saying you need to throw away all your video games, that you can never play sports again. I'm saying, are they placed above God? Does God have a place in your sports, in your job, in your friendships? Does God have a say in these things? Because this idolatry is so dangerous. And I know it's easy. Because I had to do a lot of reflection with the Lord this week in my own life. What are the things that I'm placing above God? Because it's so easy to get distracted. One of my favorite hymns of all time is Come Thou Fount. And the phrase, the lyric is, prone to wander, Lord, I feel it. Prone to leave the God that I love. Bind my wandering heart to Thee. Because, man, we get distracted. You know the term giving off like retriever energy? Where you're just bouncing around. Like in some ways, we all have a little bit of that. Is that our focus is constantly shifting to different things, and it's so easy to elevate things above God. It's so easy to turn to Him when we're struggling. It's so easy to put our identity in something else. What will you worship? We have a decision to make tonight. This idolatry does not go away in the New Testament. This was not just an Old Testament problem. Joey, you can come on up as we close here. 1 John 5:21, the final verse in the book of John, or 1 John, this is what he says. This is all he says. Little children, guard yourselves from idols. The final verse of the book. Colossians 3:1-5. So if you've been raised with Christ, seek the things above, where Christ is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on the things above, not on earthly things. For you died, and your life is hidden in Christ with God. When Christ, who is your life, appears, then you will also appear with Him in glory. Therefore, put to death what belongs to your earthly nature. Put to death the things of this world that we worship. And turn to God. Who will you worship? Who do you worship, or what do you worship? Guys, God's calling us to make the similar decision tonight. Maybe some of you in this room need to recommit to following Jesus. Maybe you've wandered. And you need to turn your eyes back upon Jesus. You need to put to death the earthly things that are ruling your life. And maybe you're in this room and you don't know Jesus. Maybe tonight the Holy Spirit is grabbing a hold of your heart. Maybe you're feeling Him draw you to Him tonight. Come talk to Tyler or I or one of your leaders afterwards. But we have a decision to make. We need to evaluate and look within ourselves. So what we're going to do, Joey's going to strum for the next minute or so. And I want us just to bow before the Lord, maybe open your arms, posture yourselves before Him. And just take this time to ask God to examine your heart. Ask the Spirit to bring to mind the things that you might be placing above Him. Because you might not even know what you've placed above God. I'm going to open us in prayer. I'm going to leave it open for about a minute, and then I'll close us out in prayer. Let's go to God.